We welcome everybody to Coptic 1101 with Dr. Joseph Sidrock. Today is our 10th Coptic language lesson, and we'll be concluding this first semester over this next week. And Dr. Sidrock, if you can go ahead and start us off in a prayer, that'd be great.
Sure. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Through Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
All right. Great. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Joe, are there any announcements you want to make before we get started for tonight?
Nothing in particular. Good job to the people who have been, turning in the homeworks. I'll get this last batch hopefully graded in the next couple of days here. We're going to go over the answers obviously today, but otherwise everyone's doing pretty good. It seems like it's been a while since the last lesson, so we've had a little gap here, but we'll finish up the semester today and over the next week. I believe there's actually 2 lessons. We can check the calendar just to make sure, but I think there's 2 lessons next week, and then we'll have
correct. our Monday and Wednesday of next week.
Yeah, Monday and Wednesday. Then we'll have our the final exam and have a break for Christmas, and then we'll start back up in January. So, but if anybody has any questions as we go along, please feel free to send them in. To the administrators. We can try to answer anything as we go along, or you can send me some messages that I can answer anytime through the SES Hymns website. All right, and if anyone has any questions, just let me know anytime, and we'll switch over the screen here, and we'll do a little bit of review before we get started, and go on. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen here. If not, please let me know. Let's see if I did this entire screen. Okay. All right. So last week, just on the web page here, hopefully you can see what I'm seeing. If not, please send us a message. But we went through the simple past tense negative. We did the affirmative and then we did the negative, so we can kind of review those here shortly. And then we had our homework assignment. So last week's lesson was actually pretty short. So let me go to the handy-dandy tables here that we've been using since it makes it a little bit easier to review. So if you remember, like we talked about, all of the grammar that we're going to be doing, we're going to try to fit it. We're going to try to make it easy to understand, and we're going to fit it into these categories here. So before we go to the past negative, let's just do the past affirmative or simple past that we did 2 lessons ago, and we're going to see why, because today's tense is going to be the same as this, but it's just going to have a ne in front of it. So it makes it real easy. And we'll go over what that tense means. So the simple past tense we took from a couple weeks ago. Remember, it's all going to fit into these first, second, third person and either singular or plural. So first person singular, I, Moshi. Second person, again, it's going to have masculine and feminine. So the masculine is Ak Moshi and Are Moshi. And then the third person, masculine and feminine, Af Moshi and As Moshi. Remember, Moshi means to walk. It's easy to remember. It's like Imshi in Arabic. So the first person, plural, we walked, An Moshi. Aratin Moshi, you walked, you and 2 or more people of any gender, it doesn't matter. And of Moshi, that's they walked. So that's what we did 2 weeks ago. And then to say the negative, basically say like didn't do something like in the past tense, we had this other construct here, but we can see if we look closely it follows some of the same patterns. So in front of the I here, it just has this may and the P, but it's got this same suffix, right? Like when we go back up here, it's got this same iota, so we know which tense it is. And MPIC and MPIT, we'll see it has these same suffixes for the, I don't know if you would call the suffix, but it's got the same suffix of the prefix part, so if you can think of it that way. So MP Saji means I did not speak. MPIC Saji, so you're going to see that this part here tells you which person it is, the second person singular, because it has the kappa. MPIC Saji. MPIS Saji has the I here, the E, just like here. Okay? Pif Saji has the Fi. Pis Saji, he didn't speak, she didn't speak. Pin Saji, we didn't speak. Pitin Saji, same thing, has this suffix to the prefix or the verb tense here. Itin. So you can see everything just fits into this pattern. If you can just put everything in your head into these 6 boxes here, everything flows in the same pattern, and you just have to learn the prefix. And that's for the bulk of the tenses that we're going to be learning. So hopefully you're starting to see these patterns. And I know this is probably pretty boring at this point because we're just kind of memorizing stuff, but it really becomes a lot funner once we go through the tenses and then we're able to actually like go through and read full text instead of just a word here. Like usually when we do the lessons, we just do a word here and a word there, and we kind of try to translate it. But it's a lot funner once we get through all of them. Then we can just read and go through entire texts and get the whole meaning of text instead of just skipping around like we do when we're just practicing right now. But we're getting there. We're going through them one by one, and we're making good progress. So anyway, back to this. So second person, impitin saji. Again, that's you, 2 or more people of any gender. You did not speak. And empu saji. They did not speak. Okay, so that's what we took the last couple of times, and today we're going to do the past continuous. But before we do that, like usual, let's go over the homework assignment. So here it says there's 2 parts. Translate the following into English. So this part's easy. Me, remember that's that Greek word that someone said can think of it as a question mark, which is a good idea because it's not really translated, but just think of it as a question mark. Remember, because it's a question that has an inflection at the end, which means you kind of raise your pitch or raise your voice at the end. Me, so that means, did you pray with your brothers? Question mark. And then here it's answered in the negative. Immun. Immun means no. So to say yes or no in Coptic, yes is se, or aha, A-H-A, or alpha hori alpha. Those are 2 ways to say yes, se or aha. And to say no, you would say immun. Immun. That means no. Then you can think of no, comma, empi eshlil minna asneyo. I did not pray with my brothers. So answer the following questions affirmatively and negatively. So it's basically, this is a practice one, and then this is the real exercise here. So we can kind of go through them, and we'll go through step by step and kind of break things down. We can probably go through it relatively quickly because it's, again, it's just vocabulary, and most of the tenses are the same, so it shouldn't be too difficult, hopefully. So I'm not going to keep saying about this me thing and everything, but I remember it's me, ak, areh, ak. So which tense is that? You want to think in your head. It's got the kappa, and this alpha means the past tense. So ak, areh, that means you kept or studied or preserved, or in this sense, because here, osh, they're trying to say lessons or readings. You can say, did you study your lessons yesterday? And saf means yesterday. So you can answer it and say se or aha. I, so this would be a iota, because you're talking about like myself. So you would say I, are, e, naosh, insaf. Okay. Let's see. Might be. Just trying to see. I didn't have a chance to type it up before, so sorry. I'm not able to go to actually show you the answers. I didn't have a chance earlier today, but if you can just bear with me while we go through the answers. So that's how you would answer the question affirmatively, and to answer it negatively, you would say immon. Remember, because we want to answer it negatively now. Immon, MP, are, inaosh, insav. So MP, remember it's the first person singular. MP, are, inaosh, insav. And we've already gone through these possessive adjectives quite a bit before, so hopefully you're starting to get the hang of it. So again, this is the plural possessive adjective. Okay, so that's question 1. Question 2, mi, af I, inje pikyot insaf. Af I, he came, inje, namely. Pikyot, pik is the second person masculine singular possessive adjective, so pikyot, your father. Insaf, so the question is, did your father come yesterday? Or you can say, he came, namely your father, yesterday. Again, because remember the nj is just switching the order of the words. But you can translate it, if you want to keep the same word order, you can just translate it as namely. So you can say, se af I nj payot insaf. So, se af I, he came, nj payot, se af I nj payot, because you're changing this to my father now, instead of your father, so you use the first person possessive adjective. Se af I nj payot insaf. Or the negative, immon, impif I, remember impif, because it's going to be the third person, because we're talking about our father again. Immon, impif I nj payot insaf. So that's how you translate it into the negative. Okay, if any questions at any point, let us know. And again, sorry, I wish I would have had a chance to type it out, but I'll try to do a little bit better in the future. Mi akti impik gom ebik sol. So akti, and that means you gave, impik gom, your book to your brother, but it's a question. So it's not you gave your book to your brother, but it's did you give your book to your brother? So you would say se aiti empagom e pason. Se aiti pagom e pason. So you would change this to the first person, it, and you change this empagom, my book, e pason, my brother. You can say it again, se or aha. And then the negative is going to be immon, mp, t, empagom e pason. So that's the same thing. MPT. So this is the part that's going to change. Okay? Because remember, we've got our table here. MPT. T is the verb meaning to give. Okay, next one, mi. This is a good question for all the class and the people that turned in their homework. Did you write your lessons today? Or your lesson today, sorry, it's singular. Did you write your lesson today? Ak eschai, that means you wrote. Pik osh, your lesson or your reading. Fa'u. So did you write your lesson today? You could say se. Eschai paosh fa'u. Or if you're going to say no, you're going to say emmon, mp, eschai, paosh fa'u. So again, paosh. Next one, mi. Are Jimmy and Nigom hijanti forshi? Are Jimmy, so now we're talking to a female person. Are Jimmy. Jimmy means to find. So you found, and Nigom, the linking particle n, and then Nigom, the books, definite article, the. Are Jimmy and Nigom hijen. Hijen means upon. And remember, if you break it down, he means upon or on, and then jen is an ancient word meaning like the head, so it means on the head, basically on the top. Hijen ti forshi, on top of the table. So mi arajimi en nigom hijen ti forshi. Then you'd say se aijimi en nigom hijen ti forshi. So basically you're going to say se, and then you're going to change this tense. Everything else is the same. I jimi, I found. If you're going to do the negative, M1, MP, Jimi, and Nigom Hijenti Forshi. So nothing else has to change here except for this MP, Jimi. Next one, mi. Araten I, evol khenep I, imfa'u. Araten I, that means you, plural. You came, evol khen is from in. You came from in the house today. So it means, did you come out of the house today? You can say se, I, evol khenep I, mfa'u. So everything else is the same. We're just changing the tense because nothing else needs to change in this sentence. Se. Actually, because it's araten, you would actually say we, because it's talking to you, plural. So we're going to respond in we, plural. I'm sorry about that. So we're going to say se an I, evol khenep I, mfa'u. Se an I. Alpha, it has an alpha, then an A. An I. And then the negative, you're going to say M1, Mpen I, evol khenep I, mfa'u. So instead of using the singular tenses, because it's asking you, plural, it's asking several people, so you're going to say we in response. You're going to say Mpen I, that's the negative, Mpen I, evol khenep I, mfa'u. Mpen I. Okay? Next one, mi. Akachi, and this is a little typo here, this should be an epsilon. Akachi and Okash, evol pekiot. Everyone knows Akachi from the hymn Akachi's Kharis. But anyway, mi. Akachi and Okash, evol pekiot. So that means Akachi, you took, and Ukash, that's the typo, so this is the singular indefinite article, Ukash, that means a reed, or you can just translate it as a pencil, like he likes to, it's used as a pencil. So did you take a pencil? And actually, it's fine for the purposes of this book to say evol chen means from, but it's actually, just from my experience, it'd be much better in Coptic to say enten payot, because this kind of doesn't make perfect sense in Coptic, but anyway, that's a little bit advanced for what we're doing, but for now we'll stick with it. But the proper way to write this sentence would be mi akchi enokash enten pekiot. But we're going to stick with evol chen for the purposes of the first year or two here. But anyway, so did you take the pencil from your father? And you're going to say se aichi en ukash evol chen payot. Se aichi and okash evol chen payot. So those are the two things we're going to change here and here. And then the negative m1 mp, you're going to change ak to mp, chi, and okash evol chen payot. mp chi and okash evol chen payot. Okay, number 8. Mi akshop and paigom fai. So shop. It's easy to remember because shop is, you can think of it as like shop, to go shopping. So did you buy? Akshop, you bought, and paigom fai. Remember, this is I think we talked about this once, but paigom means this book, but this is the possessive adjective, and then we have the near demonstrative, meaning this. So literally, you're going to say, you bought this book, this, but it's in English we can translate it as an emphasis of the word this. So how would you emphasize it? You would say this very book, for example. That's one way of doing it. So you can say, did you buy this very book? Like, like someone's holding a book in his hands and he's saying, did you buy this very book? Like this book right here. That's the best way to think of it. Because again, it's pai, gom, fai. Just like, we see this quite a bit, like when a bonus is like tai unuthai and stuff like that. It's this double, this twice. It's kind of emphasizing. So, did you buy this very book? You can say se, I shopem pai gum fai. Se, I. So the only thing you would need to change is this, I shop. And the same thing with the negative, immun. MP shop and paigumfai. MP shop and paigumfai. I did not buy this very book. So this is a good question to ask now that we've gone through the first 8. It says akkati in nikosh. Akkati. Kati means to understand. In nikosh, did you understand your lessons? Nikosh. So you would answer. Hopefully everyone's going to say se aikati in naosh. Se aikati in naosh. But if you didn't, then we'll need to do some practice. You would say immun mp kati in naosh. Mp kati in naosh. And actually grammatically, again, this is just, you know, the I don't know if it's the author or a typo, but this should be, technically it would be much better if this was an E instead of an N linking particle. Kati e naosh. That would be much better. But anyway, again, that's kind of some advanced stuff that we kind of touched on a little bit before, but not to worry about it now. Okay, then the last one, number 10, mi. Akachi izvo. So remember, izvo is wisdom. Chi is take. So you took wisdom in ti aspi and remen kimi. We didn't really talk about that, but ti aspi, the aspi means language, and kimi means English. I mean English, Coptic, sorry. And rem comes from Romi. Romi we know means man. So man of Egypt. So that means the Egyptian language or Egyptian. So rem and kimi is how you say Egyptian in Coptic language. Man of Kimi. Kimi, just by the way, Kimi doesn't mean black. I mean, Kimi, the actual word means, comes from the word kami, means black, the color black, because Egypt was called Kimi in ancient times because of the Nile flooding used to bring very dark soil and make the land on the edges of the Nile very dark and black. So Egypt was called Kimi, which is derived from the word black. So that's where that word comes from. And it was that dark soil that made Egypt a very fertile country around the Nile, which again is what led to all the countries trying to come and take over Egypt to take all of the grain and all of the stuff that they were able to grow in Egypt, and that's what led to, you know, Greece and Rome, etc., trying to take over Egypt because it was too fertile. It was one of the most fertile places. But anyway, so it's all because of this word here, Kimi. So Remen Kimi means the man of black or man of Egypt is really what it means. So Espi is the language. So did you, Chi Izvo, learn in Ti Espin Remen Kimi? Did you learn the Coptic language? Did you learn the Egyptian language? Did you learn the language of the men of Egypt or people of Egypt? You can say se, I, Chi Izvo in Ti Espin Remen Kimi. So you only have to change this one. If you didn't learn it yet, which hopefully we're in the process of learning, you can say M1. MP Chi Izvo in Ti Espin Remen Kimi. M1. MP Chi Izvo in Ti Espin Remen Kimi. So that's it for the last homework assignment. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and please send them in. Otherwise, I'm just gonna take a few seconds here and switch over to today's lesson. Okay. So today's lesson, we're studying the past continuous. So we took the past tense, the affirmative and negative, and the way to think of it is those previous ones, it's something happened at one instant in time. Like I walked. That's something that happened. Or I didn't walk. I walked home, I didn't walk home. But the past continuous now, if you're going to use, again, that same verb walk, you could say I was walking. Or in this case, they have the verb nav. Nav means to look. So I was looking. Nai nav. So that's what they mean by the past continuous. And you'll see it's the exact same tense as the simple past, but it has this n or ne in front of it. So it should be very easy to remember, hopefully. So it's like we come across this like in the odes in the psalmodiya, like when we say "Enaf Hosef Noti, Chintai Hodium Veri." Most of the deacons hopefully know that from like Chin Oshot and Modern On at the end. We say Nav Hos a few times, so that's kind of one example of a place where it comes from. But it's past continuous, so it means something was happening is not just one instant in time, but something was going on in the past. So I was looking, I was walking. For example, like I was walking when the wind blew, or I was walking when something happened. As opposed to the simple past where it's like I walked and then the wind blew or something, or I walked and something fell. So that's the difference. So instead of doing it in this format here, I'm just going to switch over to the table I have here. And we'll just go through it. So it's like I was saying earlier today, it's easy because you see here, you've got the past tense, simple past in every single one. It's the exact same thing, except the difference is it has this nay in front of it. It's easy. It's like the simple present and the future. You just have the same thing, but you just add na after it. Well, in this case, you just add this nay. So nai nav, nav means again to look. So nai nav, I was looking. Nak nav, you were looking. Again, nak is the masculine second person. Nare nav, feminine. Naf nav, he was looking. Nas nav, she was looking. Nan nav, we were looking. Naratin nav, you, plural, were looking. And nav, nav, they were looking. And someone asked me once, I can't remember what the word was, but they were asking about something that repeated like this, and they were like, well, how do you know? And I was saying, well, it's really just the context of it. So it's just like, anyone who speaks Arabic, you say that sentence, you say, gibna, gibna, wa hatta fa gibna. You're saying gibna 3 times, but it makes perfect sense to the Arabic speakers. Gibna, gibna, wa hatta fa gibna. We brought cheese and put it in our pockets. But it's the same word over and over again. So it's really, some of it unfortunately is context, but you'll learn it eventually. So nav, you were looking. Or excuse me, they were looking. Sorry about that. So it's simple because again we see it's the same as a simple past, but we're just putting this n in front of it, and it becomes the past continuous. So let's switch back over to the lesson here. So that's just kind of a review of the past continuous here. And then we have some vocabulary words that we want to learn. U'on, that means to open. U'on. But u'on means to appear, or to make something manifest or appear. U'osh, U'osh means, again, this is, these are single words, so this is not an indefinite article and then a word. This is an actual whole word here. So this is not broken apart. This is not an article here. This is not u. It's not the singular indefinite article. This is actually one entire word. So this does not separate. Wosh, that means like to want to, for example, to want to do something or to desire to do something. Or it means the desire or will. So for example, we say khin if u'ush imifnuti. Ifnuti, everyone remembers, hopefully means God. So khin means in. If u'ush means the will. And then imifnuti of God. So you say, instead of saying inshallah or God willing, you could say khin if u'ush imifnuti. Khin if u'ush imifnuti. That's how I would say God willing, or in the will of God, or inshallah, khin if u'ush imifnuti.
Joe, we have a few questions, if I can interrupt you.
Sure.
Rafit asks, get it pulled up here. Rafit's asking regarding question number 2. Asking, can question 2 be answered? Se payot Af, and Saf?
Let me switch back so I can see the sentence here. Sorry, it might take me a second. Can you repeat what I heard the question, but what was the sentence that he put?
Question number 2, his answer is Se payot, Af-i, and Saf.
Let's see. Past tense. Yeah, negative. Sorry. Let's see. Number 2.
Yes.
Payot. Well, not. I mean, that sentence makes sense. So that is a correct grammatically structured sentence, but it's not answering the question properly because he's saying pikyot, so you're going to have to say payot instead of instead of pif. So do you see what I'm saying? Because he's asking you. He's not asking about his father. He's asking about your father. So when you respond, you're going to say my father. Does that make sense?
So it's payot or payot?
Of E and J, pa, like the P and then alpha, pa, yot, and saf. Is that what the question was asking?
He said Se payot, Af-i, and Saf.
Oh, yeah, just changing the order. Yes, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
Great. And since we're on the homework, 2 more questions.
Sure.
Can question 5 be answered? Emon, empijimi, pajom, hijen, tivorshi?
Yeah, it could be. Again, that's correct grammar, but the only difference is they switched this from the plural to the singular, and made it a possessive adjective. So instead of saying like nagom, which would be my books, or nigom, someone said pagom, which is my book. That's the only difference. So it's fine. I mean, it's as long as people are understanding the concepts. I can tell when I'm reading people's homework assignments whether they're understanding and making sense of it. So I'm not going to make a big deal about small things like that. As long as the sentences really make sense, then that's okay by me. Because really, I'm not. I may have started grading a little bit harder, but now I'm just kind of really, making sure everyone's kind of understanding the concepts now more than anything else. So.
Okay. All right. Great. Sorry to interrupt.
That's it. Any other questions so far? Or that's it. Okay. So let's go back to some of the vocabulary words that we've been taking. Okay, so the next vocabulary word is uosht. Uosht is a verb means to worship. We all know this, from the liturgy. We say uosht mifnoti, khin uhoti nim usterter, for example. Uosht. Uosht, we say to worship, but literally it means to kind of like bow down and kind of like squat down. So it's like in Coptic it's like that act of like bending over and bowing down. So but in English we usually just translate it as worshiping because we tend to use uosht in a religious sense. So uosht, to worship. Uorp, everyone knows uorp from the Apostles' Fast. Of orp and piparakliton, for example. Orp means to send. Orp means to send. Sa'un. Sa'un means to know, the verb to know. And here he's just kind of come up with a word that's kind of using it to kind of make. Again, since this is kind of like a textbook that this author was trying to write, so he's kind of making these kind of scholastic words here out of Coptic. So we'll break it apart here. So eschai, remember eschai means to write. Gom is book. And then we have this linking particle. And the definite article P. So P, gom, and eschai, the book of writing. The book of writing. So he's kind of translating it here as the notebook. So it's just kind of like a clever way of making, like a new word out of old words. This word here Eshkelkel, that means the bell, like the church bell or the bell on the, on the church tower. Pi Eshkelkel, the bell. Afe, Afe means the head. Ti Afe. Some people believe, I don't know if it's true or not, but some people say, you know, it's funny, but in Arabic, when someone says I'm gonna, hit him on his like effa or something like that, some people believe it comes from this old Coptic word afe, meaning the head. So again, I don't know if that's true, but that's just something someone told me once. Jeej, Jeej, or some people will say jeeg, jeeg. So again, I know some people will get very picky and keep, ask what's the correct way to say it. I'm gonna guess it's probably jeeg. Again, and that's based on the way that this word is spelled in Sahidic, because even though the words were spelled differently, the letters were different. This was a chima, and this was a jinja in Sahidic, so it makes me think that these two letters are actually pronounced differently in Sahidic. So it probably, even though it has the same letter in Bohairic, it probably still has a similar sound. So it probably is a jeeg, if I would have to have a best guess on a multiple choice question or true and false question. I would put jeeg. So jeeg, the hand. Like for example, like your actual your right hand or left hand. And then angelos, I think we talked about before. Angelos, it actually means messenger, or coming from the word angel, meaning message. But the angels that we talk about angels, it's basically this word transliterated in English, but it actually means messenger, the messenger. The angelos, the angel. So let's see. Okay, so here we have some sentences here. So we'll do a few of these sentences, and it's telling us, I think what we'll do is we'll probably do the first few sentences here, and then we'll save the rest to be part of the the homework assignment. So again, same thing, we're just going to answer the questions affirmatively and negatively. So number 1, the question, mi nakmoshi chen pichom nimpikiot. So remember what chom is? Chom is a garden. So mi nakmoshi. So this is the past continuous now. So you were walking, chen pichom, in the garden, nem, with, pick, your father. So were you walking in the garden with your father? And that's supposed to say if this was just akmoshi instead of nakmoshi, you would say, did you walk in the garden with your father? As like a one-time thing in the past. But now because it's the past continuous, it's were you walking in the garden with your father? So you would say se naimoshi chen pichom nempayot. Se naimoshi chen pichom nempayot. Or if you were going to answer it negatively, you would say emon naimoshi an chen pichom nempayot. So to answer it negatively, because in the past tense, there's a way to have this past negative where you just use like empimoshi, but in the past continuous, there is no equivalent of it. So the way you say no is you would say emon, no, nai, moshi, on. So it's kind of got like two no's around it. So emon, nai moshi on. On means no also. So emon, nai moshi on, chen pichom nempayot. No, I wasn't walking, no, in the garden with my father. But again, that's not how it's translated, but just for the sake of learning, it's basically saying no twice. Emon, nai moshi an, chen pichom nempayot. Okay? So that's how we're going to do these sentences here. So there's 10 of them. We did the first one. It's kind of numbered incorrectly here, but we did the first one together. And then if it's possible to fix these, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through 10. But we can do one more. Mi nak ischai impik osh hipi gom in ischai. So remember gom in ischai, book of writing, notebook, the notebook. So mi nak ischai, so it's past continuous. Ischai means to write. So were you writing impik osh, your lesson or your homework? Were you writing your homework on the notebook? Were you writing your lessons on or your homework on the notebook? You could say se nai, again because he's asking you, so you're going to respond I. Se nai eschai im paosh hipi gomen eschai. Se nai eschai im paosh hipi gomen eschai. So yes, I was writing my homework on the notebook. If you're going to answer it negatively, you would say imon, mp, I'm sorry, because we're sticking with the past continuous. So imon, nai ischai on, nai ischai. So we're going to change this to, it's going to be the same format as this. Imon, nai ischai on, impaosh, hipi gomen ischai. So imon, nai ischai on, impaosh, hipi gomen ischai. So that's basically how we're going to do it. So I'm going to leave the last ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to leave the last 8. We did the first 2. I'm going to leave the last 8 for you guys to do in your homework. So try to pay attention to the tenses, pay attention to the possessive adjectives, and try to keep the same format as the question. Try not to switch. And stuff like writing the sentence with or without the nj, stuff like that. That's not that big of a deal. Whatever way you prefer is fine, as long as the sentence makes sense and there's not that significant of a typographical error. Then it's okay with me. Okay, so that's today's lesson. We won't really basically this is just a simple exercise, so we're not really going to go through this part today. But if you can just do this answer affirmatively and negatively for the homework assignment, that'll be great. And then we do have a little bit of time, so I was asked before if we can just do some a little bit of reading, just straight reading of Coptic first, and then maybe we'll do some translations in the last 10 or 15 minutes. Now's a good time if anyone has any questions of anything we've taken so far or anything in the first couple of months of the lesson. Go ahead and please feel free to send it in, and we're going to get started here shortly. And again, today is the 29th of Hatur, so the Synaxarium has these readings. So I just, that's why I just picked this, just so we can have something to look at. I prefer to, for people who are learning especially, it's good to read from the Gospels in Coptic, because again, it's the gold standard of Coptic, of the Bohairic Coptic language, is the Gospel texts. So it's really good as a source because it's easier to understand than, for example, the epistles. Those can be a little tricky. They have a lot of tricky grammar. So whenever you're learning and studying, it's really best to stick to the Gospels because it made it, it's very clear compared to some of the other things. But anyway, so we're just going to do some reading. Maybe we can read this is the gospel reading for Vesper, so this would have been read last night. But we'll go ahead and we'll read it today because it's part of today's readings anyway. So in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Owo as shopi efki sa ipsa immavatf if prosef kiste Navki nemaf pe enjani mathitis. Owo avsheno if go emmus je araniromi go emmus je enoknim. Inthau de av eru pegau je Ioannes Pierefthioms. Han kekauni dhe je Ilias. Han kekauni dhe je u prophetis enteni archeos. Pe et aftonf. Pegaf dhe na u je entoten dhe arethengo emmos je anoknin. Petros de af eruo. Sorry, sometimes I tend to like get used to reading fast, so I say af eruo instead of af eruo. But that's just when you become more familiar with it, some of the things can start to slip together like that. But that's okay. Petros de af eruo pegaf je enthok be Christos ifnoti. Enthof de et af epitiman nou af honhen e eshtem je fai enehli. E af gos je hoti pe ente pshiri imfromi chi omish en chisi. Owo entu shoshf en genie presbiteros. Nemni arshierefs, nemni sach. Owo entu chotbef, owo ente vtonf, gen pimashomt en ehou. Nafgo de emmos en uon niven, Jafietna uosh ewaf en soy, maref golf, evol. Owo maref oli, en pefestavros, en mini, owo entif moshi en soy. Fi gar eth uosh enohem entif psiki, if natakos. Fi de eth natako entif psiki, eth vit if enahmes. U gar erepiromi na jamheyo emmof, afshan jamheyo en pikosmos tirf. En thof de entif takof en mavaf. Ye entif tiosi emmof. Fi gar ethna shipi chaeti nim nasaji, fai hof epshiri emfromi nati shipi naf. Eshrop afshan I gen pef ou, nim fa pefiot, nim nif angelos eth oeb. Tigo emos noten, taaf mi, je uon han uon, gen ni et ohi erato, em paima, ni ete, en sena gemtipi emf muan, shatu nav, etimet uru, ente efnoti. So that was the reading there. So people were asking just to kind of read it to see how everything sounds, but we can go through. This is kind of an interesting. It's a good gospel. All of the gospel readings are good, but it's interesting. But anyway, let's just do some translations, and then we'll see kind of some of the things that we've learned so far. So we know uo means and. Make it a little bit bigger here. Hopefully that works better on the screens. I'm not sure how it's showing up for you guys, but hopefully you can see it good enough. Make it a little bit smaller. Okay. Owo means and. Us shopi, so us. That's a simple past tense, feminine. Us shopi. Shopi means to happen or occur. So when there is, in Coptic, when there is like a generic, like, and it happened, that something happened, they usually will use the feminine. Like, for example, like in Arabic, they say like hasalat instead of like hasal. They tend to use the feminine when it's just kind of like a general or a generic thing. So as shopi, we all know this from the hymn. We say as shopi. That's the first word of the long part. As shopi, and it means so. And it happened. So here they put and it came to pass, or fki sapsa emavat if eropros fgetste. And we just took this today. Nav ki. So ki means remember, ki is a form of the word ko. Remember we talked about ko, it means to put or place. So this is the qualitative form of that verb, which we'll get into. But nav ki means they were placed or put with him. So nav ki nemaf. Nemaf means with him. So that's why it says we're with him. So this was the past continuous tense. So, and it happened as he was alone praying, they were with him. but it's the past continuous tense. So they were being with him at the time of something happened. And the time of something happened is right here. Af sheno, he asked them. So they were with him when something happened. Okay? So nafkina maf. Pe. And je ni matitis. So matitis means disciple, ni matitis, the disciples. Owo. And in the past tense again, af shenu. Shen means to ask. This is the past tense. Af shenu. U means them. So again, we'll get into these suffixes later, but really just focus in on this part. He asked them. So let's go to the next part. Inta'u, de. Remember, inta'u is the personal pronoun, the third person plural, so they. And then er'u'o means to reply or answer. So of er'u'o, so that's the past tense again. So they replied. And they answered. And pega'u means and said. Yoannes, that's easy. John, that just means John. Pirefti oms, so refti oms means to submerge. Ti means to give. So ti oms, give submersion. Refti oms is the one who gives submersion. So John, the one who gives submersion, or in other words, John the Baptist. So hanke kauni de je Elias. Elias is just the name Elijah. U e prophetis. So we know that this is prophet. That's again the Greek word prophet with the indefinite article, a prophet. Ni archeos. Again, a lot of Greek words here because it's just rote vocabulary. But archeos means like archaeology. Something in the past, like the historical. So archeos is like archaeology. It's old. So a prophet of the archeos, of like the past. So that's why here it's translated as one of the old prophets. Pe etafton, who was risen. Okay. So let's skip this and we'll go. This is a good sentence that everybody who's in this class so far should be able to answer or to translate this sentence. Enthok pepe Christos ifnoti. Enthok pepe Christos ifnoti. So enthok. So this is when Peter answered and said, "You, enthok, you." That's the personal pronoun meaning you, masculine. Pe Christos. That's abbreviation for Christos. Ifnoti, you are the Christ, the God. You are Christ, the God, or you are the Christ God. Let's see. Yeah, we have about 7 minutes left, so we can do a little bit more. Again, if anyone has any questions at any point, again, just please feel free to send them in. We did the reading, so it's okay to interrupt now. It's fine. Well, let's go down to verse 22. Ifromi. Again, this is this linking particle, so we can kind of let's take it together. Epshiri. Epshiri. Remember Pshiri. Shiri means son, so Epshiri, the son, the linking particle M, so you can translate as of. Ifromi, the son of the man, or the son of man. Epshiri em Ifromi. Chi means to take. U mish. We haven't taken this word mish, but mish means like a lot of things. So u mish. It's typically, you'll see this sometimes as han mish or u mish. So again, it doesn't matter so much in the English translation, but in Coptic you'll see it both ways, u mish or han mish. Again, ni presbyteros. That's easy. The presbyters. Nimni archierifs, the high priests. Nim nisach. So this is a word. This sach is like from the word ischai. Ischai means to write. So sach are the ones who write, or the scribes. Nisach. Here we go again. This is a good example of what we studied today, of the past continuous. Nafgo. Go means to say. So this is the past continuous. So he was saying to them. Here it's translated he said to them, but it's the Coptic understanding of it is the past continuous. So he was saying to them. Okay, here's some. We took this vocabulary word today. Uosh. Uosh means to want or to want or desire something. That's what uosh means. So here it's not really showing it completely in the English, but it's literally he who wants to save his soul or he who desires to save his soul. But in English, again, because of the King James version, it's not quite, unfortunately, as good of a translation from the Coptic or the Greek. But anyway, but the Coptic, when you compare the Coptic and the Greek, it follows extremely precisely the Greek. But when you compare the Coptic and the English, unfortunately, there's some differences as you're starting to you're starting to see now at this point. So that's why it's a good idea to learn Coptic, because if you're ever reading the Bible and you're like, that's a little confusing, you can go back to the Coptic and try to figure out what it says more precisely. But anyway, so yeah, so in the Coptic it's saying, he who desires to save his soul, but here he says, for whoever will save his life shall lose it. So again, tif, psiki. So it's the feminine possessive adjective, third person masculine. So this part's feminine because psiki is a feminine word. This part's masculine because it's talking about him. So it's his soul, tif psiki. Let's see if there's any. We've got a couple more minutes left. Let me see if there's something else that we can benefit from here. P cosmos, that's like cosmonauts. Cosmos means the world. P cosmos is the world. And that's pretty much all the main things that we've studied. Again, pretty soon you'll be amazed that you'll be able to understand every single word here, but I think we're making a lot of good progress so far, so I think we'll kind of wrap things up. I don't know, Mark, does anybody have any more questions or anything before we conclude with our prayer?
No questions have been submitted.
Okay, well, sounds good. Well, I'll pull up here again, hopefully we can make this a habit where we can conclude every time with the Lord's Prayer in Coptic here, and I'll kind of try to point along. But thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me any questions through the website. And someone sent me a question the other day about the homework was submitted about 3 or 4 minutes late, so that's okay. I won't take off any points for 3 or 4 minutes. It's not a big deal. But if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and conclude. خنفران فيوت نم بشيري نم ببنفما ثواب ونوت ينوت أمين جي بنيوت اتخني في قوي معرف توف وانجي بكران مارس إي انجي تكمت أورو بيت هناك معرف شوبي اما فريتي خنت فه نمهي جن بيكاهي بن أويك انتراستي ميف نانم فهو أوه كان يتيرون نان إيفول اما فريتي هون انتنكو إيفول أني إتا أوون انتان إرؤو ووهم برنتن أخون أبيرازموس على نهمن إيفول هابي بتهو خن بخريستوس إيسوس بنشويس جاثوك تتيمت أورو نمتي قوم نمبي أو شاءنه انتنينه تيرو أمين خنفران مفيوت نمبشيري نمببنما ثواب ونوت ينوت أمين. Okay, thanks everybody, and have a good night.
Thanks, Joe. Good night.